Everybody, all right, important podcast today. So, Strongfit system, right? So, first, let's talk about the seminar I'm doing in late September in LA. Then from there, I want to explain the Strongfit system, what I'm going to do in the seminar. And then this would lead to an age-old question, important question, that is, what is Strongfit? And I think I have an answer finally. To explain that, I'm going to go into a humongous rabbit hole that I believe is actually one of the most important one. I would say physically was internal talk, external talk. Mentally, in a sense, I would go with what I want to talk about, the matrix, today, because I think I am figuring out the difference between, the phylogenetic hierarchy, the wheel. In the wheel, there's a difference between flow fight and flight freeze, right? Those are almost like a positive, negative. It's not true because there is no such thing in nature, but you get the idea. I think I understand what the switch is from fight to flight, flow to freeze, and I want to talk about it. So it's going to be one massive podcast. Probably should be two, but who cares?
Just bring it on.
Well, I'm going to talk about it again anyway. So first, seminar, September 28th, 29th at Improve, Divergent Fitness, with my partner, Mike Ramirez. So I'm going to do the Strongfit system there. So what are we going to do at the seminar? What is the Strongfit system? So I'll talk about the principles, obviously, where the West scale with the abstract nature, that's going to come into play later. So the S pyramid, for example, the S pyramid, structure the carries, but stabilization, body weight, right? We're going to talk a bit more about that. The Strongfit system will be a practical one, which means the idea is to have something you can take to the gym and use tomorrow in an established, structured way. Yes, okay. I know, I said the S word again.
What happened to you?
That's the point.
Julian, what happened?
I know. So what do I mean by structure? I mean the 10 fundamental exercises that we use, right? How to use them, obviously form, technique, all that stuff. But where to use them, right? In which context? From there, the workouts we created over the last 10 plus years, and which one do we still use, which one passed the test of time.
Yeah.
Right, the 5 minutes, 5 squats, 5 carries. We have a list of workouts like that we use, right? Protocol, like the nutrition aspect, based on performance, right? How do we use it for Jelena? How do we use it for me? Based on performance. So programming, right? How do we program CrossFit, Strongfit versus CrossFit? And this matters a lot because too many times I've seen people taking Strongfit stuff and putting them into CrossFit. So for example, farmer's walk that I do for 100 feet max, and you take it to 400 meters. What I want to really to establish as a Strongfit system is that 0 to 5 minutes, right? Yeah. That 0 to 5 minutes is very important because, for example, rope pulls. There's a moment when the rope pull, just like the farmer's walk, when it gets too light, is you do not get results from it anymore. Not enough for the amount of time being spent. For example, a 400-meter farmer's carry, it does the grip kinda. It allows you to really have to shrug the hell out of it because it's too light. So you're kind of walking all over the place with it. It does not give you the results that I'm looking for through, or that I can get through a heavier farmer's carry. That's why a farmer's carry is, let's say, 100 meters max, because then it works your grip like crazy, but your grip in a proper grip as it should be done, because this will benefit you from your gymnastics and from the internal torque perspective. If you go 400 meters, you can hold it with your fingers. You're not in proper grip anymore. You load your traps. You're so relaxed because it's so light. You're not working. What is it that I think you should be working with a farmer's walk? It's a bit the same thing with the rope pull. When it's light, people just use biceps, start to fling the rope everywhere because they can do it for hundreds of meters, hundreds and hundreds of feet. Then you're not, the form, no matter how much you're trying, you don't need to anymore. You're going to start to relax your core. Your hips are going to move. You're not doing the rope pull as... I think the rope pull is one of the fundamentals movement of Strongfit, but I also don't think it can be applied too light or too heavy.
That was what I was gonna say, because I see also a lot of time people doing it so heavy that they're yanking out of the thing, and I'm like, so what's the point here exactly?
Because it's too slow, and then so there's
And they're doing like the whole
by the way, it's the same thing with if you see CrossFit, for
Yanking
example. Like
stuff.
this is a point when I say CrossFit is not a methodology. What I had a podcast with Jason Carlipa, and he was asking me that question. He understood the point I was trying to make, which is CrossFit as the training system, not methodology, but system that is created, has yielded immense and tremendous results, but only in a specific field. So that's what I meant by it's a training system, not a methodology. CrossFit was created as a methodology, and I think it is wrong. I think it's not a methodology, it's a training system again, because if you see, it has not yielded to 1 rep maxes very high outside of for women, to a degree, and even less for men. It has not led to huge back squats or deadlift or whatever. It's led to amazing results in that 8 to 20 minute range. Then you see barbell cycling. He invented that, and we are probably the best at doing that shit for the heaviest. So, but you see also he didn't give a good 5K to the CrossFit Games athletes. So it's not working in that sense, right? They put so much energy into it. Yes, they're not specialists, but that's my point in a way, is that's not what CrossFit is. It yields results, but not outside of that specific field. And they will defend the methodology by doing, yes, but CrossFit never said he always say, Greg Glassman always says specialization is bad, right? Right, but that's my point, is the methodology was like, you're going to get strong and fit and everything. And if you go back to Greg Glassman, he was saying, yeah, jack of all trade, master of none. Right, so it's a very chronic aspect. But if you take, for example, the 5K, which is not, you should see better results. We're not talking CrossFit leads you to 15 minutes, but I believe CrossFit should lead you to an 18 minutes if it was going to work in that aspect. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I got to 21 minutes training very specifically, and I think I could have gone in the 19 minutes training that way. Obviously not the 15, 16. I'll never get there, right? But I was going, the specialization toward running requires another set of skill and training that CrossFit gives you.
Yeah.
But CrossFit gives you tremendous things in that frame. So that's what I meant by CrossFit as a training system, is the results that it gives at a high percentage are in that frame of reference.
So would you say then it gives you a base to...
No, really. It just makes you good at that.
Yeah.
Okay. It makes you good at that.
Interesting.
I mean, the best powerlifters don't make the best strongmen. The best Olympic weightlifters don't make the best strongmen. You know who makes the best strongmen? The best strongman. Because it's that 90-second thing that you train in strongman. It's almost like, it's an energy system, but it's a type of effort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Right. And wrestling, for example, it was rounds of 3 minutes. That's its own conditioning. So there's a way there. Of course, after that, we can go into genetics, why some people do whatever. But my point was, most things lead you to... Because the thing is, risk versus reward is how much effort for how much results. And it seems that specific system give you more result for a block of 100 effort, some system give you more result toward this. The way I approach running gave me, out of a block of 100 effort, gave me 21 minutes. A pure CrossFit workout wouldn't.
Okay.
Even if we count the effort as capacity to recover on my nervous system, stuff like that. I mean, yes, it's not specialization, but the way Glassman explained it, I think then CrossFit training should get you a 20-minute 5K.
Oh, yeah.
Because 20 minutes is not that good. So we're not talking about I don't think a 20-minute 5K is specialization. I just don't think CrossFit gives you that result. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Because what I did wasn't specialization either. I did rounds of 1K, 3-1 everything, and then I did a lot of 400 meters. It's not exactly specialization. It's not real specialization, because I was still lifting heavy, doing my strongman stuff. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I understand it because I notice even that, like, I can get very fit doing my CrossFit workouts.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't per se translate to when I do, for example, sprinting intervals or running intervals. Yeah. It's not the same thing.
Not the same.
Like, the thing that will make you better at running is still running, type of thing.
But it goes a bit further because, for example, CrossFit for Jiu-Jitsu conditioning wasn't...
You don't think so? No?
No. The sandbag was much better.
Yeah, sandbag, I can imagine, yeah.
Like you do, jiu-jitsu is like rounds of 5 minutes all the way to 10, depending on
Yeah.
which belt you're at. But like a 5-minute sandbag will carry over far better than barbell cycling at CrossFit. Yes, they're going to say the methodology is functional movements. Whatever, it's what is being used today that matters to me. Is the effort in a CrossFit class like that with those 20-minute workout will not give you the benefit on the jiu-jitsu. I've seen it many, many, many times. They can do rounds and rounds and rounds, but in the round, they cannot express their energy correctly.
Mm-hmm.
There is that. Just because you have a humongous tank of energy doesn't really matter nearly as much as people think if you can't use that energy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, look at swimming. You can do all the running you want. You go in the pool, you're gonna die because the effort is so different.
Yeah.
By the way, Lance Armstrong, when he went into triathlon, died on the running at first because he's just. And who has a better tank of cardio than Lance Armstrong? It's just he couldn't run because running is running.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like.
And I think it's also like for especially with like running the impact in the ground gives you also a different stimulus, and
Yes.
I think that's why the sandbag can work also so well for jiu-jitsu is because the contact with it, right? Like the contact with a human and a sandbag, it's so different the way you
difference is barbell
squeeze.
cycling. The difference between a barbell and a sandbag is that when you train with a sandbag, you do whatever the sandbag tells you to do. Whenever you train with a barbell, you do whatever your head tells you to do. You can tell the barbell what to do. The sandbag tells you what to do. You don't have a choice. So it allows people to disengage their core, go toward their erectors or things like that with the barbell. That's just a sandbag you want. So once you go into jiu-jitsu, everything has to be connected. So that disconnecting that you did with the barbell, you will not find with the sandbag. So for example, if Greg Glassman had chosen sandbags and not barbells, CrossFit would not look the way it looks today. Because the workouts would be different, because the barbell allows you to go toward. So that's why when I say it's a training system, non-methodology, because CrossFit now is anchored with the barbell. Maybe it shouldn't be in a vacuum, but who cares? It is now. It's been famous for the last 17 years, 2007, first CrossFit Games, is when really CrossFit started to blow up. Now, barbell is part of CrossFit. You're not taking it out. So maybe in a vacuum, it's not the idea of CrossFit, but who cares? That's what CrossFit is. Right? And so the barbell has changed the nature of CrossFit into something that is valuable for certain things, not necessarily for others. I do believe the sandbag will be more beneficial for specific things.
Yeah,
Right.
I think so too.
And
Yeah.
that's where Strongfit comes in, which means I'm at the seminar, I'm going to go over the 10 fundamental movements that I believe are great. But the fact is, they will work for Strongfit, not necessarily the best for outside of that time limit. So, and obviously it's an approximation, but I'm going back to the idea that Strongfit is 0 to 5, 5 to 20 is CrossFit, 20 plus is IROX. Because it is suited, like if we look at results-wise, it is suited better this way.
Yeah. Can you then almost define them as the 5, the 50s, and the 100s in that sense, or?
In a way, it would be something like that.
Yeah.
And so I believe Strongfit system will be workouts up to 5 minutes using the 10 fundamental movements with a specific idea of acute intensity in mind. Rest where needed, but the point will be to push the acute system to the max. More on that later. And I'm going to explain because that's what Strongfit means, because it's a very important part, is the acute system. That is what Strongfit does. Nothing is more acute when it comes to pain than a sandbag. For example, you take a heavy sandbag, you go over like that 500 feet uphill that we have in a driveway. It's one of the most painful things you can tell. So a Strongfit workout will not necessarily bring the most pain. It's the one that spikes your heart rate the most. Not elevate your heart rate the most, spikes your heart rate the most. There's a difference there.
Yeah.
The top endurance people can go 170 and maintain that for 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, which is insane. But they go to 170 and then they stay there, right? It's very specific. It's not the same as going from like 60 to 170, coming down, coming back up. That spike has a tendency to freak the nervous system, and you'll see your heart rate spiking out of that. Spiking your heart rate to 170 is not the same as getting to it slowly to 170. The effects on the nervous system are very different. The spike to a heart rate is the acute system, which is what Strongfit will do. So that means farmer's walk is short and heavy. Rope pulls is right in that middle of speed, but not too light. There's a number of things like that. So I believe a system, a structure is required so that you stay within that range of the Strongfit system. So then after that, of course, I'm going to talk about the protocol and then all the principles, but that fundamental idea of we're going to do the workouts a specific way. You can create workouts. We'll give you the example what we think works. A lot of it is with sandbags and carries and stuff like that, but it will stay within that frame of reference of pretty much 0 to 5 minutes. Can you make it into 20 minutes? Yes, but now we're in the CrossFit range.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where barbell cycling would be better, or the format that CrossFit has developed over the years that is so beneficial, right? For example, a sandbag over the bar, that's a Strongfit stuff, it's heavy. If you go light for 20 minutes, then you're doing wall balls. The wall balls are better. See what I mean?
Yeah, so I like it because actually what you're doing is you're defining the limit of the box better so people
Yes.
can grasp it better and people understand it better. And also with that, I think you acknowledge where Strongfit's place is and where there's other things that are better. Like if
Yes.
you want to do like a 40-minute EMOM, no, Strongfit is not your pick.
No.
It is High Rocks, and
Yes.
that's where that
Yes.
place is, and
Or
that's
the
also
decal from
okay.
Spartan Race.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's by far
yeah.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like it. Clear limits.
And yes, and
It's good.
It has to be, and it was established. High works. There's a reason why all the runners go there. Because they express their strength, which is running forever very, very fast, better in that system. Then what does that tell you?
Yeah,
That's where you should go if you're going to go there.
yeah,
And high rock still makes you still pussies, but at least they're getting stronger.
yeah,
So they're just stronger pussies now.
yeah. No,
Still
true.
works.
Yeah,
But I mean, so whereas like, yes, I say cardio is bad for you. Obviously, I'm joking to a degree. But
yeah,
the point is, and it's the point I'm trying to make every time, is like Strongfit works a specific way. It's not a Chinese menu. Stop picking what I do and putting it into another energy system, like another form of training like CrossFit, because then you lose both.
well,
You're
yeah,
not doing CrossFit, but you're not doing Strongfit either.
Yeah.
So now you lose on both sides instead of winning by doing Strongfit or CrossFit.
yeah. That's why I like that you're actually really clearly are defining what Strongfit is, because that way people can identify it better. But it's also it gets, because let's be honest, people water it down often. Like,
A 400-meter farmer's walk, to me, is far less interesting than a 400-meter run full speed or a heavy farmer's walk. By the way, do that. Do a heavy farmer's walk for 100 feet and then go run 400 meters at full speed. Your pulsation is going to hit you, but that's a great way. That's a Strongfit way, right? Or do rounds of 400 meters. That's still a Strongfit way because I've done it. But now you go into 1K rounds, so now we're more on the other side. But anyway, you're going to get more results out of that than doing a 400-meter farmer's carry, which you're not running fast and you're not lifting heavy. So what are you doing? You're doing a mix of both, which means you're doing none of them. And this is what I see a lot of, is people choosing to do, they pick and choose what they want to do, but at the end, what they're really doing is none of it. Which I think, in a way, unconsciously is the point. Is let's not run 400 meters; it's too hard. So let's do a farmer's walk 400 meters because we pretend we're still doing something. Where actually, yeah, you're doing something, but you're doing something not useless, but that's a very lower use than the 400 meter at full speed or the heavy farmer's carry.
Yeah.
It's just choosing chronic versus
yeah, 100%.
acute, and this is where we're gonna get into.
That you see in so many different ways so often I see that so often with clients. It's like, oh, I did 4 sets because I didn't want to go,
one.
so you didn't do one.
Yeah, right. And by the way, I want to talk about that because I want to explain what Strongfit is, and I'm going to use this as an example. So, real quick, we're going to do the fundamentals of Strongfit, the exercises we use, the workouts that we do while we build them. We're going to go over the principles, obviously. We'll do some of the protocol for performance because I think it matters. So we explain, again, acute versus chronic. We're going to go over how we build a generous template for powerlifting because I want to show you guys how we apply Strongfit for strength because it's still below 5 minutes, so it works really well. So we're going to go into very practical so you can take that to your gym that Monday and start applying it the Strongfit way.
Yeah.
Right. So now, what is Strongfit? We're going to go over chronic versus acute, why people do what they do. So I was thinking about that and it kind of hit me last night. I've been working on it for a while and as usual, it just hit me at some point. Imagine a matrix where we divide things when it comes to the human system in 4 different things. We're going to have cognitive versus somatic. Somatic is the body, cognitive is the head. Then chronic versus acute. 4 boxes, right? You put 2 here, and then you have the 4 boxes. And you're going to be able to put almost anything in one of those boxes. So for example, depression can be somatic or cognitive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Anxiety, same thing. Depression can be chronic or acute. But they're not the same thing. So for example, what is an acute somatic depression? Is when the inflammatory levels go so high, for example, visceral fat or stuff like that it shuts down your body completely. Now you're in acute, depressed phase, somatic.
And what would be the difference between acute depression and chronic?
Like you never have that much energy. You're not completely crashed, but your body just cannot go to the next stage. Because it's in shutdown mode, but not fully acute, but it's still in the somatic. So a chronic depression, really what you see is anxiety crashing you, anxiety crashing you, anxiety crashing you. That's actually a chronic depression because turns out the cognitive starts to get into that. Cognitive takes over, anxiety crashes you back somatically. Cognitive takes over, anxiety crashes you back somatically. So is the acute somatic and the chronic cognitive then? I believe that's what the difference is. Let me explain what I mean. You have hyperventilation, right, for people with panic attack. An acute hyperventilation creates a massive panic attack. An acute hyperventilation, which obviously the way you breathe and all of that, creates an acute somatic response, panic attack. So what do people do? They get into chronic hyperventilation. So they control the way they breathe. That's a cognitive, chronic hyperventilation.
Oh.
See what I'm saying?
And so by being able to identify in which category your anxiety falls or your depression, you know, and how to help them.
Because you know what they're doing. So, for example, what's interesting is people would tell you, why do they go into chronic hyperventilation? Well, no, just stop the hyperventilation. But if you stop, you change the system. You're not in a panic attack system anymore. And you cannot do that because you cannot ignore that what they call a spontaneous panic attack is coming. Which, by the way, spontaneous panic attack, acute, somatic. Very acute, very somatic. Acidity, for example. Right. How do you control it? You go into chronic. So we're going back to where we were saying. Acute is controlled by chronic. Does that mean somatic is controlled by cognitive in that sense? Because you cannot step away from you're so afraid of the acute panic attack, that the spontaneous panic attack, that you can't get away from it. That's not true. You can't go, it's not going to happen because it scared you so much. So you have to stay within the panic system to control it. What you do, you go chronic.
Yeah, so you're always a little.
So that you control the too much. So by going cognitive, always aware of it, you diminish the somatic, the acute somatic. Chronic, cognitive diminishes acute somatic. That system explains everything. Explain lactate levels, explain everything. Is that the difference between fight flow versus flight freeze? Is flight freeze such an acute somatic response, but that it crashes you completely? But the only way to control that is to have your mind going, no. In a fight, you get punched, you come back how? By cognitively going chronic state so that you don't go too acute. So there's an arch, acute, chronic. That seems to be the same as somatic, cognitive. Is that what cognitive is for? Is that the point of consciousness then? Because remember, it's a hierarchy that goes from unconscious to conscious whenever the problem becomes too big and you require the head to take over.
Oh, so
consciousness is a way to go toward chronic cognitive to control acute somatic. The difference between a man and a dog freaking out.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, if it becomes actually too high,
consciousness comes in.
That's
what consciousness is when the problem is become too big, becomes too much somatic and gets too acute, the consciousness comes in to control the somatic acute response by going cognitive and then chronic in order to control the acute.
So is a cognitive chronic than a lesser version of the acute
No, it's a
somatic,
way.
or is it
It's a
different?
way. No, it's within the same system, but it's a way to control it. Yeah, it's a lesser version, but in a way to control
Yeah.
it. You bring it back under control.
And could that be measured with lactate, like someone who always has like not super
That's what
high
we
but
see.
not super low?
That's what we see.
Oh,
So a panic attack, we see the brain lactate remaining too high for too long.
wow.
So, but maybe they keep the brain lactate up. Same thing, to keep themselves elevated at a certain point so that they never fall into the spontaneous stuff. Because it's brain lactate versus body lactate, not the same.
That's
See
a
where
lot.
I'm going with
That's
this?
a lot to digest. By
But
the
see
way.
where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Right. So people are trained the way they train. They choose little bit of strong fit, little bit of CrossFit, do none of it. What do? They go chronic. Strong fit is very acute, right? CrossFit is less acute but still very hard. So they combine the two to go less hard, more chronic. And that's a conscious decision because they're afraid of going toward too acute, too hard.
So actually, they're increasing their anxiety by doing that.
Of course, because they're increasing their chronic anxiety, which allows them to control their acute anxiety. So if they go burn a question, it creates acute anxiety. How do you stop that? You go chronic. You do have to burn the question halfway.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
mix strong fit and CrossFit. Because a full CrossFit workout that takes you too far will create a spontaneous panic attack because that's acute somatic. See how that matrix can define almost. Is that the, so flow fight versus you keep going versus flight freeze. Flight freeze is an acute somatic response. Almost like the somatic controls the system. That's what the freeze mode is. It's a dorsal vagus nerve, polyvagal theory. The dorsal vagus nerve controls you, shuts you down. That's a acute somatic response in the sense of the somatic takes control of the cognitive.
Yeah.
Whereas a flow, cognitive is in control of the somatic. Same thing for fight. Fight, you stay in, you strategize, you're in control of your somatic. You do not act by reflex, you see an opening, you jump in, you get punched. That's almost a flight mode.
Yeah.
So it's not just parasympathetic, sympathetic off of each other. It's cognitive somatic. That explains the hierarchy I talk about, the 8 hierarchies I talk about all the time. There's the first 5, then 6, 7, 8. They play off of each other because there's an arch cognitive somatic. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah. But that also would that also mean that if you eat high sugar, high
Yes.
carbs diet, there is no way that you can train
Exactly.
yourself out of that.
Exactly. Because you will always have a somatic response.
Yeah.
That is his own spontaneous problem.
Yeah.
So that means that you'll have to go hyperchronic mentally and slow down everything to control it. So the more sugar you have, the less hard you can train.
Yeah.
Because the more you have to push on the other side.
So then you basically what that
Or you freak out.
Yeah.
Choose one.
I mean, so actually doing Strongfit training the Strongfit way cannot be done without a protocol.
Yes,
And
that's
with
a good
that,
point.
with
That's
that
a
I
good
also
point.
mean, like
That's a
you
good
see,
point.
you're not a CrossFitter if you don't do if you do not eat the
Right. So
whatever.
but let me
healthy
yes,
way.
yeah, and that's a very good point. So remember when I said nutrition is to stabilize you, training is to unstabilize you? Right. So nutrition provides the base, the chronic thing of keeping everything not as less as somatic as you can, so that the training can be higher in that acute sense. So the nutrition will balance out the training. So only a protocol type that has low sugar, no alcohol,
Yeah.
low inflammatory levels can allow you to train as hard as you need to train.
Yeah.
Because the acute is strong fit, and that chronic stabilizing effect is what we use nutrition for.
Yeah.
See where I'm going with this? So what is strong fit? The training system is about acute. And the protocol is to balance that out.
And I mean that's a bit of a stupid question, baby. Is there a point in not training acute? Should there be some dose of training that is not acute?
That's active recovery. That's different. That's
Yeah.
not training per se.
And
But
so,
if you don't train acute, then you're chronic, right? So we're going back to that idea of that what you do is you're lowering resilience. which is fine up to the moment where life brings the acute system.
Yeah. And with that, like, for example, would you consider Q minus one an acute training?
Q-1 was to, still is, that's why it's under 10 minutes. Q-1, the idea was for you to control the acute response of your body. So it's Q-1 is a stabilizing factor so that you can take it to acute system. The Q-1 is a testing system, a way for you to see where you are, acute versus cognitive. So Q-1 is still a balancing effect. Q-1 is very close to the protocol.
Yeah, I was going to say that then that kind of falls into the...
So it's an overall.
And then you could even say Disney December falls in that. If
Yeah,
you
but
want
the
to
problem
include
with that, so the problem with Disney December, and I wish, in a way, I never put it out there in that sense. I think that in a way that was a mistake, because what people are going to take out of all of that, I have acute stress in my life, so therefore everything should be chronic, so therefore I should only do Disney December. Right, but then you lower your resistance to life. The problem is, when I say acute, I mean somatic acute, not cognitive acute. And most people's stress about life is not somatic, outside of food. It's, the producer is back.
Hey, baby. Thank you for
When
joining.
I'm talking about acute stress, it's not true. Your stress is not acute. You're day-to-day. Yes, you don't like your boss. Yes, you're having a hard time.
But that's cognitive stress.
Yes,
that's
exactly. That's not acute somatic.
That
Acute
stress is only in your
somatic is
body.
either it's the bear chasing you, it's a number of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or actually, acute somatic now is the food can become an acute somatic stress, in the sense of it creates so much acidity, so much problem with your system when you eat really poorly. Then now that becomes an acute somatic problem, which is the podcast we made on depression with visceral fat, inflammation levels, and everything. So acute somatic at the end is, you can look at two things. You can look at inflammation and its correlation, sometimes causation, acidity, either brain or body.
Yeah.
That's acute somatic for you, right? So maybe you have that. Most of the time when people talk about stress, they talk about cognitive. And that honestly is in the eye of the beholder. You think you have a rough life because your boss, because of your spouse and everything, come live in Brazil.
Yeah.
And you'll see that what you call, and by the way, I'm not dismissing how you feel, because what you call a cognitive stress is based on where your center is. The softer your life is, the lower your center is on the scale, in a sense, right? That you have a life that is so soft, that you will feel stressed regardless of where you are. You're in Brazil, you become tougher, then you have stress whenever plus 10% is stress, minus 10% is bored, always, right? Doesn't matter where you are, this is what life is. It's boring when it's less stimulus, you're anxious when you have more, regardless. But the problem is the more you lower your center, the more stress you feel. So for example, an American that has a very soft life in LA, let's say, or stuff like that, where everything is organized, comes to Brazil, they're going to lose their shit. They're going to stress every day for like 6 months because nothing works the way they used to. So that's going to be an added stress. While you and I, because we've been here 3 years, you go like, yeah, well, that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely went through it the first 6 months we were here.
My point.
And then after that, you really...
Because you raise your center.
Yeah, yes.
Right, so that's the problem with Disney December is be careful about becoming softer.
Yeah.
Like in order to deal with your stress right now, you might sacrifice your resilience in the future. And most times you will. There's a danger there.
Well, and actually, I like that you're saying, I'm not saying dismissing their stress, but and I'm not saying you are, but I kind of think it's good sometimes to say to people, honestly, it is not that bad. It's just because you're in this perspective of your life.
Bubble, yeah.
And I think it's actually, in a way, it's good because
and we all have bubbles. By
yes,
the way.
we all have.
We all have bubbles. Everybody has a bubble, and the bubble is called your environment.
Yeah.
So, but I think in the West we make too much of cognitive stress because personally, I think we got very soft. I live in Africa, we're in Brazil, but I've traveled a lot. I take it from someone who has maybe a larger perspective about life than you do just because of its own experience. In the West, we have a tendency, whatever we call tough or stuff like that, people, I got to tell you, the life in the West is very easy. I'm sorry. And by the way, like I see that the people that I've seen the most grateful in life are the people in toughest situations. Africa, Brazil, and everything. The people that are least grateful about their life and their culture and what their environment is bringing them is people in the West.
Yeah.
That tells you a lot.
Yeah, and
Anyway, so I'm not dismissing you. I'm just saying, like, be careful about the cognitive stress. It might not be nearly as simple as you make it. Whereas acute somatic stress, you can actually measure inflammatory markers, acidity, all that stuff. You can measure. You know exactly where you are. Genetic factors come into play, epigenetic, all that stuff. There's no question. But the fact is that there are markers for there. To go back to my original point, that is what Strongfit is. It's understanding the acute system from a somatic and cognitive perspective, and it will allow you to fight the chronic aspect that can be problems. 90% of the diseases we see in the West are chronic, not acute. The medical science has gotten rid of most acute disease problems relating to disease. Not always, obviously, but it's mostly got rid of the acute system. What we have now is our chronic diseases. But those chronic diseases that never go, I believe, are reaction to an acute somatic stress. So, for example, your inflammatory levels are so high that your body has to shut down and everything. Like you see that with obese people, they have calories, but they can't process the calories because the system is shut down. Because otherwise, it would have crashed already. Imagine if the body had to process continuously the sugar that you're pumping. Your insulin level would kill you. So what it does, it takes the sugar and puts it away. Your insulin resistance, because your body cannot continuously raise the level of insulin. That would create another problem. You would go into a coma and stuff like that. So at some point, the body just shuts down. So all the sugar is just put away toward fat, water retention, all that stuff. So you can have the sugar, you're not processing anymore. You're just putting it away right away. But that means that you're not digesting properly. So you can see how all the other systems go. Chronic is always there to fight acute. The question is what type of acute system. So for example, a Strongfit stress is a positive acute system because it creates a favorable response. It's negative when it creates an unfavorable response. But to the body, nothing is favorable or unfavorable. It's only a response. Like you go too acute, it goes chronic regardless. It is how the system works. The result can be positive or negative, and that's where the play is. So from a training perspective, Strongfit is going to be 0 to 5 minutes wide, so it creates an acute response. So, by the way, it also means that, and this is why I want to define the workouts, because if you go in a more chronic way, then you're not doing Strongfit. So that 400-meter farmer's carry is not Strongfit.
Yeah, I think defining it this way, people are a lot less able to get away with stuff,
exactly.
And with that, you are helping them.
Right.
Because you're confronting them in a way with this is it and this is not it, and if you're not doing
I'm not confronting them.
No,
I know what you're saying,
way.
but I want to explain to them. I'm not confronting you in that sense that I am providing you a better option to do the longer workout. Don't use the Strongfit stuff because then it doesn't work anymore. So what I'm telling people is, look, my stuff will benefit you 0 to 5. If you go into 20 minutes, you're doing something else, and there are better ways to do a 20-minute workout than to use the light farmer's walk.
It a lot.
I would tell the high rocks people, don't do the farmer's walk, then at least the sandbag carry. That would be better than the farmer's walk. The sandbag carry is the only stuff I would use for past 5 minutes. For example, what do I mean by that? You want to do the high rock stuff, instead of farmer's carry light that doesn't do shit, a sandbag carry would be infinitely better. Because you're going to engage the core, posterior chain. Sandbag carry is one of the few things you can do 400 meters every day, for example. Yeah. Sandbag carry is his own thing. It's very interesting. But so there are ways to do certain things for the highest benefits, right? And I think the best way to do Strongfit is 0 to 5 minutes in a way that I want to explain at the seminar. When you go past that, I believe there are better ways to do it.
Yeah.
CrossFit, high rocks, things like that. Can we use some of the Strongfit movement for CrossFit and high rocks? Yes, but which one?
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, if we want to go heavy, 10 rep max, then I think the Strongfit movements are better than the barbell. But if we're going to cycle, then it's much better to cycle with a barbell than it is cycling with a sandbag. But
Yeah.
if I'm going to go 10 rep max, fuck yeah, the sandbag is better.
Yeah.
But cycling the barbell is much faster for that specific energy we're trying to develop. The barbell is better.
Yeah. And would you then also say fixing injuries, imbalances in the body, that's you do that in the 5 minute range? Like, for example, let's say you have a knee issue or you have a thing that you're trying to.
So
That's
in order to fix an injury, I would go with a sandbag. Yeah, for the 5 minute range, for the main reason that you do what a sandbag tells you.
yeah.
So that I believe the sandbag is more functional than the barbell in that sense.
Yeah.
Because you do what the sandbag tells you, you can never do a sandbag anything without your core being engaged properly. It's impossible. Like at first you arch, but after a while you just can't do it. So you're gonna have to find the better tension. People that can't do that is usually because they train with barbell and they're used to telling the barbell what to do.
Yeah.
Their form, they overarch their back, which you can get away with a barbell. You can't do any of that with a sandbag. So to fix injuries, I believe the sandbag is better. Older clients, the sandbag is better.
Yeah.
Like we can argue this all day long. It is my belief, my opinion, what I saw through my experience, that to fix injuries, to prehab, so to prevent injuries, older clients, lower reps, the best thing is a sandbag, some strongman movement.
Yeah.
I believe so.
And
so far I've been proven right. So then we can argue about that all you want if you want. But that's the Strongfit system. And so I do what I do. This is a Strongfit system. Outside of that, I believe there are better ways to do it.
Yeah.
There are ways to adapt the Strongfit system in ways I haven't found yet. But I want to give you my experience, what I saw, how we program for you, why does it work? How come Janina came back, second deadlift session after 3 months, and she did 170 for 4 better than the last time she competed? Why has she progressed on the sumo without sumoing for 3 months? Right? Why is that working? Because we followed the principles a specific way.
the shit really works.
So that's my point. So that's what Strongfit is. It's the acute system, and I want to teach that. So that's what I'll do as Strongfit seminar. So by the way, I'm back on seminar. So I'm going to do the LA seminar will be September 28th, 29th. Most likely I'll do a seminar in Europe on that weekend of the 21st, I believe it is, of October. 21st, 22nd of October, I think it is. Or 22nd, 23rd, whatever, that shit. No, it's 21st. Okay, so it's... Anyway, that. And most... Because I'm talking to one of my friends about London. So we'll see anyway. But no matter what, September 28th, 29th, in Los Angeles, first Strongfit system seminar ever, and then from there I'll go back to doing US, Los Angeles, Europe. It'll be London, Amsterdam, and those will be the seminars we do this year. From moving forward, it's gonna be the Strongfit system. Sounds good.
Sounds very good.
Bye everybody.
Bye.